What is up, Dream Team? Another day of 100 push-ups, still in LA, but I'm not gonna skip. So let's get to it.
Those products are not good enough. You know what I mean? Because if they were exceptional, then you wouldn't actually have a customer issue. That's the thing, right? And so it's an easy scapegoat of like, I'm not successful because I'm not one of these marketers. It's like, no, you're not successful because your shit sucks. Like, that's what it is. That's okay.
Hey everybody, this is Jason Mark Campbell and welcome back to Superhumans at Work. The guest that I bring today, oh my god, you are all in for a treat. I just finished his book, which is the $100 million offer. He is the man behind acquisition.com. He is an entrepreneur, an investor, a philanthropist. It is the one and only Alex Harmozy. And he has launched a series of gym and fitness centers and really revolutionized the way that these gyms operate across the world by using interesting ways of presenting their offers. And this is really what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about what is a Grand Slam offer. Why is it that we need to look at our businesses differently and not necessarily look at competitors and how we can just be slightly discounted, maybe do things a little better, but how we do it extremely better. And his book really breaks it down. We're going to talk a lot about it today. And if you're not familiar with this man, I mean, you should know that his businesses and his companies serve over 4,500 plus companies, as well as 10,000 plus customers. He has gyms across the world that use his model, and at this point, all of his umbrella companies generate an upward of 85 million a year in cumulative sales across various industries. The man is an acquisition and monetization expert. He is a guest contributor on Forbes and Entrepreneur, and he's here with us.
It's 20, baby.
Thank you so much for being here.
Hopefully I'll live up to the introduction.
Hell yeah, man. Like I said, I just finished your book, and again, I just want all the viewers, usually I mention this at the end, but if you're in business, you need to pick up a copy of his book, $100 million offers. It was one of the best books I've read in a long time as far as how much you can apply what is being taught. But before getting into the topic, there was something I thought was very interesting in your bio. And there was a kind of a mission or a vision, or at least a big goal that you said about being the most jacked billionaire. I wanted to ask you about that.
Well, I just figured I was trying to create a smaller category to be number one in.
I was going to say, do you have any competitors?
Well, Neil Labrada, I think, is worth about 600 million. I think Arnold's just under $1 billion or just at $1 billion. So he'd probably be, I think I might have him now, but he's still Arnold. So I either have to get above that and still maintain my jackness.
I feel like I've seen memes of Jeff Bezos looking pretty cut as well.
He is. I can't. So hopefully, I'll be more jacked than him.
That's hilarious. But I mean, think of you. You're on your journey. You're already there, going to the $1 billion here, which is fascinating. And when I was going through your book, I love that there's a moment of vulnerability you shared about how this kind of started, because you had a moment where the cash flow wasn't going right. You had to make some big decisions. So I wanted to go back to that original point, because a lot of people listening might be saying wow, okay, you've got it all together. You've probably all had this. But you came from humble beginnings and you had your own struggles.
More struggles than wins is what it feels like. I think I share just one of those moments in the book.
We're at 30, baby.
There are many others that are equally desperate and destitute and hopeless, or seemingly hopeless. But yeah, I mean, I think the introduction of the book tells about the basically the point where we pivoted from me actually running my own series of gyms to flying out and starting to fill other people's gyms up. So that's when we started the turnaround business. So we turned around, I think, 33 gyms in a matter of a year and a half. And then, halfway through or near the end of that, we transitioned to do the licensing model. And once we transitioned to the licensing model, that's when everything really kind of took off. I think one of the interesting points for everyone who's listening about that story, and I talk about it more on the YouTube channel, but it's if you think about all of us as kind of vessels for skills, traits, beliefs, you can have those same bucket of skills. Fundamentally, I knew how to market, I knew how to sell, I knew, a decent amount about fitness. And my first opportunity vehicle with that was I actually started a charity called the Free Training Project, where I trained people for free. And they would donate to a charity, and that was because I had a good consulting job. I didn't need the money, and I just wanted to help people. And then, from there, I started my first brick and mortar gym. So that was a different opportunity vehicle for the same kind of skills, et cetera. And I was able to scale those to 6 locations and I was able to do it a little bit differently than some people did. I was able to open up each of my facilities at full capacity on the first day, which I thought was what everybody should do. So I didn't understand. I assumed everyone was doing that. So I was like, why would you open an empty facility? But it turns out that wasn't common. But the next iteration was flying out and doing this for other people, filling their gyms up to full capacity in a month. And so that's yet another vehicle for the same bucket of skills. And then from there, transition to the licensing model. Where
I think I'm gonna do my 50 squats right now.
Bucket of skills, but in a different
That way,
opportunity vehicle. And I think a lot of people
do 50 more
I mean,
push-ups.
I almost wrote. I'm not even sure if this one's in the book, but when we transitioned to the licensing model, it was by accident. It wasn't on purpose. So the turnaround business was difficult because we didn't control the fulfillment. So we would go in and fill a facility up. I would take on all the processing risks. So I would spend the money on airfare, flights, hotels, ad spend, commissions to the sales guys, and I would process the money, and then the gym would get the client. So it was a grand slam offer. They didn't have to pay anything. I would just fill their gyms up, right? The deal for me is I would get 100% of the revenue I would collect. That was the deal, and then they would get a free customer, right? The problem was that a handful of them were not as great people, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. But they, some of them were like, hey, if I just ask these people to refund once the guy leaves and then sign up back for me, it goes from being a free customer to a paid customer. But I had already incurred all the costs, to do that. And so a couple months I had 2 gyms that did that out of like the 6 or 7 that we had turned around. And if you're running not 100% margin business, but maybe a 20-30% margin, if you just get erased on 30 or 40% of the top line because it's refunded, then that more than eliminates your margin. You're going negative. And so it was actually in the kind of that, I don't even think I talked about this one in the book, but that kind of moment, it's probably for my next book. That moment of kind of desperation, I had to sell more each month to cover the refunds from the month before. So in the book, I talk about, I just jump over this because there's like a whole other part that sucked. I had to, every month I had to sell more, which it felt like a death trap because it was like I sold every ounce of my being to get to cover last month's refunds, and then this month would start coming in and I have to sell more. So I went from just being a gym owner to within 6 months doing $400,000 a month in cash collected, or just under that, to cover refunds, and it was just insane. And so my wife still had her, at the time she was my girlfriend, she still had a little side business, fitness, and she but she was like, just in case this guy goes crazy, or maybe he doesn't want to date me anymore, I've got this thing going. And I said, you know what, we know how to sell weight loss, why don't we just sell your program? You become the face, I'll run all the marketing, the sales, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And we started to do it. So within 14 days we're doing $1,000 a day. And I was like, holy cow, this could work. I'll take the 8 sales guys that we had on the road, we'll bring them in, we'll do 8,000 a day, and we could turn this around. It was all digital products, it was all margin. And so I was like, okay, this could happen. And so we actually made the decision to do that. So that's not told in the book, right?
60.
We made the decision to make that call. So if you really want to talk about opportunity vehicles, this was yet another opportunity vehicle for the exact same bucket of skills, right? I knew how to market, I knew how to sell, I knew how to do fitness. And so the next month I had 8 guys that were supposed to launch, 8 gyms that were supposed to launch the next month. And so I called them up and I said, hey, we're not doing this anymore. We're kind of pivoting our model. They didn't pay me anything, so it wasn't really a big deal. But it turned out it was a big deal because they're like, dude, we need this. Our gyms are going to close. We're struggling, blah, blah, blah. And so finally I said, I'll show you how to do it, but I'm not going to fly out there to save you if you can't sell. I'm done with that game. And they were like, no, that's fine, it's reasonable, it's okay. And they're like, well, how much to teach me? Because you filled my friend's gym up. And I was like, and I picked the highest number I could think of at the time, which was $6,000. That was the highest number, just to show you where, that's where a belief's limiting issue, right? My belief at the time, not most I could. And I said that because I wanted him to say no, because I didn't want to do it. I wanted to just be done and pivot to this weight loss thing. And he said yes. I wonder how different my life would be if he had said no, right? But I was like, holy cow, I got $6,000. The next phone call, I was like, well, shoot, I have to make this thing, And so next phone call I went on and I said the same thing. And he said, well, how much? And I said, $8,000. And he said, okay, that sounds fair. And so the rest of the day, I had set 6 more phone calls after that, and I ended up selling $60,000 in sales that day. And it was selling a digital product I hadn't completely finished yet. And so the next 48 hours, I did the sleep and I finished basically the acquisition piece. So I already had the sales training because that's how I trained my own sales guys. I had all the fulfillment stuff that I had already made for the gyms. So I really just had to film how the marketing part worked, how the lead gen aspect worked. Yeah, that I looked at Layla and I said, I think we're still in the gym business. I was like, I think we're just doing it wrong. And so that was actually the final, that was kind of the final pivot. So there's this micro pivot that even happened between the turnaround business and the licensing business. And I stumbled into the licensing business unknowingly. So it was not a master plan. And I think there's just something to be said for like, everyone has this illusion, I think, when they're starting out that like the business that they're in is going to be the last business or it's going to be their Facebook. And if you look at most entrepreneurs, even the greats, a lot of like, with the exception of Jeff Bezos, like just about every entrepreneur out there had multiple things that happened beforehand where you acquire these skills, these beliefs, these decision-making processes that ultimately set you up for the thing that is going to be the massive success. And a part of that, which, you know, to lend credence to what you were saying at the beginning, has something to do with product market fit, which, you know, I just use the word offer as an all-encompassing word to kind of exhibit that, but in the hardcore business world, they would just call it product market fit, and most people don't have it. They're trying to sell something, people don't want it. And so it's trying to figure out how to sell something. Like what I found out, which was hilarious to me, was that I would go fill these gyms up and they were like, hey, can you show me how you did that? And I was like, no. I was like, no, this is how I make my money. I'm not going to show you how to do it. But it was silly because it was such a scarcity mentality. So that's another belief that was limiting me at the time. Rather than just realize that I'll always be compensated for the amount of value that I provide. And it was far more efficient to not have to pay somebody to fly out, stay in a hotel, get a rental car. So there was all this value that I was leaving for hotels and costs that I could have otherwise been pushing to the person who ultimately bought the licensing program. So they were still doing, so the average person who signed on, I just remember these stats from the first 30 days because I called back all the turnaround gyms as soon as the licensing thing started.
That's 90, baby.
I think I did. Now you want me to show you how to do it? And they're like, sure. The average gym did over $30,000 in additional cash collected for the first 30 days. So the product worked, right? And it was also exactly what they wanted. And so, and I covered every single aspect of it because I had done it for 2 years, not including the 6 gyms that I had on my own. So there was just a depth of knowledge of like, here's how you set up your sales office. Here's how the lobbies works. These are the questions you ask when they walk in the door. Here's how you should do the tour so you can like maximize the likelihood that they buy. Here's where you sit. Here's where they sit. Here's the questionnaire you'll have them fill out. When you have them fill it out, crouch and be eye level with them because you'll build rapport faster and they'll think that you're accommodating them, right? And they finish that, and then transition to the office.
That's 10. 100, baby.
All of your degrees and stuff.